For many, the genre of opera brings up visions of the hefty helmet-wearing Brunhilde. For others, they may think of the sensual and sexy Carmen, or maybe even the confident yet morally bankrupt character of Don Giovanni. Regardless of what many think of what they think of when they think of opera, the roles in opera are traditionally performed and indeed written by white musicians. There are, however, exceptions to this trend. Jesse Norman, Leontine Price, and Simon Estes, to name three. But by and large, opera is still dominated by white performers. The New York City-based organization Black Opera Production intends to shed light on past and present Black opera performers. This Friday evening at 6 o'clock Winnipeg time, Black Opera Productions will be presenting a truly unique experience that they are calling Black Opera Live Canada. Baritone and broadcaster Kenneth Overton will be interviewing three of Canada's biggest names in opera: the Juno Award-winning Misha Bruegger-Gossman, jazz and gospel star Audrey Dubois-Harris, and international opera leading lady Ottilie Graham. This is a completely free event that can be seen on Facebook Live. Joining me here virtually through Zoom to talk about this upcoming interview with these three Canadian opera superstars is Kenneth Overton. Welcome to our Classic 107 studio, Kenneth. It's so great to see you and meet you.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Mm-hmm. I thought first you could briefly tell us about the organization Black Opera Productions and how the organization came about.
Yeah, back in 2018, before I was actually involved, the daughter of the great Simon Estes had contacted Jonathan Estabrooks, who is the director of the Black Opera film, about doing a smaller documentary on her father's life. And he contacted his friend Miranda Plant, who's the other filmmaker on our team. And when they went digging, they found a bigger story, a more gigantic piece to tell because of his contemporaries. And so it was born then. And then a year later, I came on. So that's how it sort of got started.
It sounds great. I know Black Opera Productions is in the process of filming and producing a really interesting sounding documentary called Black Opera. You are the associate producer of this doc. Can you briefly tell us about the documentary and how it's been affected by the COVID-19 situation?
Yes, well, about a year ago, Jonathan and Miranda had contacted me to bring me on as a consultant for the film because I was brought up as a reference from a mutual friend because I love opera. I'm an opera singer myself, and I love Black opera singers in particular, and I love that history. And so we had a few meetings, and then after the few meetings, they had approached me about being an associate producer, something that I had never been. And so I decided to jump into the deep end head first. But it's a film about these six amazing Black opera titans, I like to call them: Simon Estes, George Shirley, Leontine Price, Martina Arroyo, Grace Bumbry, and the great Jesse Norman. And their commonality, like five out of the six of them, they were all at the height of their careers in a Western European, predominantly white art form during the exact time America was going through the civil rights movement. And so we thought, wow, what a story to tell. And we're getting the stories directly from the sources. So it's not like we're going and digging and we're having other people tell their stories. They're actually giving us the stories from firsthand knowledge.
Wow, sounds amazing. Okay, let's talk about Friday night's event. You are interviewing three superstars: Misha Bruegger-Gossman, Audrey Dubois-Harris, and Ottilie Graham this coming Friday night.
Yes.
How did you decide on these three singers? Have you sung with them before, or how was that decision made?
Well, I've sung with all of them, and they are all very, very, very dear friends of mine. And Audrey and Misha have both offered me political asylum should our elections in America not go well. So I may be a new Canadian resident. But with the Black Opera Live talk show that I've been hosting since June, um, I wanted to talk to my friends who are also Black opera singers, and they were also donors to our film fund that took place in December of 2019. And since we're in these COVID times, I was trying to think about something creative to do and to keep the idea of the film in people's minds. And because I'm also an artist advocate for singers of color, my dear friend Misha, she sent me a private message and she said, "Hey, I see that you're doing all this advocating for Black artists, but it's just the American ones. Don't forget about us up here in Canada." And so I said, "You know what? You're absolutely right. Thank you for calling me out on that." And so I said, "Well, how can I make this an interesting story?" And so I called Ottilie and I called Audrey, and because they're all moms and they're all fantastic, incredibly talented, busy, sophisticated, beautiful women, what a story to talk about, and how Canadian artists of color are perceived, and how what's going on here in America is affecting them, in addition to affecting them globally. So I just thought it was a great story, and I took it to the team, and the team, because they're Canadians too, they were all they were all for it.
Oh, that's great. You touched on it earlier. You have been doing interviews throughout the months of June, July, and August in a series
Yes.
called Black Opera Live on
Yes.
both Facebook and YouTube. What is it about this Friday night's event that you are especially looking forward to, other than talking to three good friends? Is there,
Three good. Yeah, I think the Canadian aspect is so important. And it's something that I'm excited about in particular because you all are our closest neighbors and one of our biggest allies. And I think audiences will want to hear directly how you all are affected in these times as well. So I'm really looking forward to sort of unpacking what that looks like, and showing the rest of the world that America isn't the only entity that is affected by this pandemic and by this sort of social justice movement that's happening in opera.
right, the Black Lives Matter issue carrying over that very definitely
Yes.
into the opera field? What topics do you hope to cover with these three amazing singers on Friday?
Oh, wow. Well, I want to definitely cover motherhood. I think being a mom is probably the most difficult and the most gratifying job that one can have. But being a working mother, and because their jobs require them to travel so much,
Right.
what does that look like? How do they handle raising their children on the road or being away from their children and the rest of their families? I wanted to talk about their careers and how COVID-19 has stalled them and what they're doing to be creative in spite of it. And then to just catch up with old friends. I sang with Misha in my Canadian debut at l'Opera de Montreal. We were Porgy and Bess back in 2014. That's where we met. And Audrey, we've been friends for many, many years. I'm actually the godfather of her daughter. And Ottilie and I, we have been in Puccini's Turandot maybe two or three times, and we've also done concert versions of Porgy and Bess together as well here in the United States.
Are you expecting them to talk about how performing here in Canada is any different than performing in other parts of the world?
Absolutely, and particularly for Audrey and Misha, because their careers are not just specifically opera. I wanted to talk about how the Canadian audiences have embraced the other styles. Audrey sings a lot of gospel, a lot of jazz in addition to opera, and Misha just sings the entire spectrum of music. And I wanted to find out from them firsthand how Canadian audiences have gravitated and embraced that. And because Audrey is an American who lives in Canada, I wanted to talk about how she's been received or embraced by the Canadian population as well.
Which sort of leads me to my next question. I was doing some reading about you, and
I
you were,
mean,
yes, and from my understanding is you were raised in Philadelphia, right?
yes, yes.
Um, what are you expecting the three singers to have different experiences? And here I'm thinking particularly early on, being educated and whatnot. Are you expecting the three singers' experiences in the early days to be different than yours, perhaps? What are you
Yes,
expecting?
I think so. Knowing what I know of them, Ottilie being born in Toronto, but she went to school in Philadelphia, actually, which is where she lives with her husband and her son. So that's pretty interesting. I want to figure out how that happened. And Audrey, being Haitian American, growing up in Florida and then attending the Juilliard School in New York, and then how that transferred to her now living her life in Canada with her husband and daughter. And Misha, who's born and raised in Canada and just outside of the Nova Scotia area, why she chose to stay in Canada with such an international career and raising two sons in this climate. So yeah, I'm looking forward to learning things that I don't already know about them in our
Right.
friendship.
Yeah. So the interview this Friday night is scheduled for 7 o'clock Eastern time. That's 6 o'clock Winnipeg time. And my understanding is that it's on Facebook Live. For
Yes.
those listeners who are unfamiliar with Facebook and Facebook Live, can you maybe quickly tell us how we can find the information so we can tune in on at 6 o'clock on Friday?
Absolutely. So there's several ways you can tune in. You can go to the Black Opera Facebook fan page, and we will be streaming it live there. In addition to my personal page, Kenneth Overton, I will be streaming it there. And the ladies, their individual fan pages as well, will also be hosting the event live, in addition to it being live on YouTube. So if you follow Misha on Facebook and you follow Audrey and Ottilie, all of their pages will be streaming it in addition to the Black Opera fan page and my personal page. And
So,
then we keep all of the interviews cataloged and saved on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. So if for some reason you miss it on Friday night, you can go back and watch it at your leisure.
wow. Okay. So there's lots of ways that people can tune into Facebook and see this fascinating chat with three Canadian superstars and yourself.
Yes.
There is one question that this is a question for myself. Jesse Norman, Leontine Price, they're so influential, not only for Black singers,
Mm,
but for all singers.
absolutely.
Um, are you, from the interviews that you've done over the summer and the interview that you're going to be doing on Friday, are you expecting to use any of that footage in the documentary Black Opera? Like, I'm sure that these singers have influenced singers, and maybe perhaps the singers have talked about this. Is that footage going to be used, or?
We will be showing a teaser of the documentary on Friday night, so tune in for that.
Okay.
It's quite beautiful and inspiring, and it definitely will make you want to see more. So yes, we are planning to do that.
Oh, it sounds great. Kenneth, thanks so much for taking the time to tell us about Black Opera Live Canada this Friday night. It sounds super interesting, and I know that what I'll be doing as soon as I get off the air on Friday. So once again, for our Classic 107 listeners, it is 6 o'clock this Friday night. Go to Kenneth Overton or Facebook's page, or Black Opera, the Facebook page, and you can tune in to hear this really, really, what sounds like it's going to be an interesting conversation. Kenneth, thanks again for chatting with us.
Thank you so much for having me.